Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Kirsten Williams, the Chief Communications and Stakeholder Engagement Officer, and I have the privilege today of hosting you all, along with my DC Water colleagues, to talk about all things permits in our permit department and fees. We have found these webinars to be a phenomenal opportunity for us to engage with our audiences and busy schedules. I know we're still in the throes of the pandemic, but I certainly think that these virtual opportunities have been rewarding for us because it gives us an opportunity to engage with you all on important topics and certainly be an avenue to address questions you might have. We have several topics today that we want to cover and bring to your attention. And as I noted at the beginning, we'll be talking about our permit process and new fees and some changes in our fee structure. We also have some very interesting topics, some new services that we're adding. And notably, I would be remiss if I did not note some of the new additions that we are doing have been in response to the fantastic information you've shared with Brian McDermott and our permits team, notably an online portal that we're going to be implementing in 2023 that will give you a greater access and ability to apply for permits. So there is some good news here today to share, and notably about streamlining our processes. Again, that feedback that you all share with us is really rewarding as we think about offering a benefit to you all as our customers. So at the conclusion of today's presentation, we will, of course, address topics. However, feel free to put your questions in the chat. We will kind of go through them at the end of the presentation, but we all know that you don't have to necessarily speak up to offer your questions today. So feel free to do that during the chat as we'll be monitoring the chat as well. So I do have a few of my colleagues on that I wanted to give a little shout out to. In addition to Brian McDermott, who will be doing today's presentation, we have Michael Goddard from our finance team. And I believe our Chief Operating Officer, Keisha Powell, was planning to join us. I don't know if she's on, but I wanted to acknowledge my colleague from our senior executive team, as well as all of the DC Water colleagues from our Office of Government and Legal Affairs, engineering, marketing and communications, and operations. So I'll be very brief in my kind of introductory remarks because I know that you all are certainly here to hear from our colleagues. But if we can go to the next slide, me please. Fantastic. So we just wanted to give a little overview very briefly again about DC Water. We recognize as really our business entity and commercial customers, you have an opportunity to engage with numerous DC government agencies as well as the other utilities in the district. But we wanted to just talk a little bit about who DC Water is as an independent authority in the District of Columbia. We do, of course, apprise ourselves every day to wanting to ensure we distribute safe drinking water and collect used water and clean wastewater. When we're thinking about why we're here today, of course, our charge is to sustain the financial viability of the authority, and of course, to make sure we are maintaining, upgrading, and replacing our infrastructure. And I know as we're all watching with our heartstrings tied to Jackson, Mississippi, you can see why it's even more important for us to be talking about right-sizing our fee structures and ensuring that we are replacing and upgrading our infrastructure to meet the needs of both our residential customers, our business community, and of course, the economic vitality of the district. We can go to the next slide for me, please. So again, just very briefly, I just want to make a nod that we are a not-for-profit. I know a lot of times in the District of Columbia, if you're thinking about the other utilities that are for-profit entities and shareholder-driven, we are not in that operating mode. So as we're talking about our permits and fees today and our fee structure, it's important to note that baseline as it really, every dollar that we collect from you, we are putting those monies back into providing our services for you as our customers. That's why it's very important that we equitably think about how we're providing those services. Again, from both our residential community and our business community, which many of you are here today, meet that aspect of our customer base. And of course, to make sure our bills are affordable and equitable. We are thinking about the end of our fiscal year as we do align ourselves with the district government in that part. And we've been having conversations about how important it is for us to continue to offer our customer assistance programs. We have one of the um, most supportive programs in the nation, and we're very proud of all that we do to baseline and offset those costs, as we know it's very important for us to make those infrastructure enhancements and upgrades. It's a very costly juncture and endeavor, but with Matt Brown, our Chief Financial Officer's leadership, and of course the leadership of David Gaddis, our CEO and General Manager, we really are trying to ensure that our services are not are equitable and that no one is unfairly paying for any of the services that we will provide today and in the future. So with that, I am going to turn it over now to Michael Goddard from our finance and budget team, who will go through a few things, just a few housekeeping matters again before we get into the crux of today's presentation. Please feel free to raise your hand once we get to the question and answer portion of today's presentation. I'll kind of serve as Vanna White and help walk us through that portion of the presentation. Also, feel free to put your questions in the chat. We will address them towards the end, and maybe if there are others from the team who can do that as the presentation is going on, but we certainly don't want to distract from that information. So without further ado, Michael, I'll turn it over to you. Michael, I don't know if your mic is not unmuted. I cannot hear you if you are speaking.
Let me find him in here.
Okay, he's raising his hand to help you out, Emmanuel.
Okay,
Thanks for doing that, Michael.
got him.
Let's do a mic check. Michael, can you hear
Mic
us?
is on.
Okay. Michael, we're turning it over to you at this point. I'm still unable to hear him. I'm assuming you all are as well.
Yeah, he's definitely unmuted from our end.
Okay, now I think now I'm unmuted. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Yes,
you.
All
we
right,
can.
thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you
Sorry
all
for
for
that.
your patience as we work through our technology challenges. Thanks so much. Go ahead.
My name is Michael Goddard. I'm with the Rates and Revenue Department under the CFO cluster, and I'm going to briefly give you talk to you about why we do a cost of service study, when we do it, and who does it for us. So the primary reason why we really do a cost of service is to make sure that the fees that we collect cover the cost of the service that we provide. That is very, very important for us. What it does is it prevents us from cross subsidization and ensuring that the customers that are getting the benefit of the service pay for it, and therefore it does not unfairly get recovered from everyone in that customer base. Now, there's a 3-year horizon as to when we do the cost of service study, and there's reasons for it, as also is in line with best practices. The reason why we do it is because within the 3 years, certain fees might have changed. The nomenclature of the fees might have changed. The service provided might not be matching what is currently being done. So within a 3-year period, we do hire an independent consultant. We coordinate with them, but they are the ones that actually review the fees. Some are engineering, some are permitting, some are fog, some are just different fees that as the business evolves that we need. They look into it, they build their model, they do all the inputs, we provide the information and data that they need, and they come up with generally what represents the cost of service to be charged for the services provided. So they test it against reasonableness, they test it against our peers to make sure that the level of fees are in comparison. And in the last study that we did, actually, our peers that they tested with were WSSC, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Fairfax, Loudoun, and Arlington. Next slide, please. So after the study is done, there's always some results. So from the last study, many of the fees remained the same. Some increased, and primarily because of customer demands for supported expedited services, post-permit customer support, and also with everything going on with inflation. Fortunately or unfortunately, there have also been few fees that have been on the books but were previously not charged. Going forward, those fees will be charged, although they're very minimal, but they will be charged. Permits recently decided to be more customer friendly and in line with making sure that they are reacting to customer needs, have decided to offer a very proactive approach to contractor customer service. This is going to be a new service, and it's really going to be a one-stop shop in which, to avoid the bureaucracy of the different departments and units that you have to go through, there will be one that will be more engaging, easier to manage, and then help us capture our costs better and also be able to provide much better services. I'll be hanging around for further questions if anybody has any regarding the cost of service, why we do it, and how we came about with these fees that Brian is getting ready to talk about.
All right. All right. Well, hello. This is Brian McDermott. I run the Permit Operations Department. I'm here today with Vahid Bilvardi and Jigar Bhatt, and collectively we run and manage the Permit Operations Group. And I'd like to talk a little bit. Let's start right here. DC Water, interesting name, DC Water. We're really the District of Columbia Water and Sewer Authority, and that we maintain both water and sewer critical infrastructure. The whole process of permitting is to say we have critical infrastructure, and as people build and make connections to the system, we need to ensure that there's integrity of connection, that it's done in accordance with our standards, that we have capacity, that it's a safe connection to be made. And that's why we do the permitting process. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay. So fees, how are they set? All right. There was a cost of service study that said these are all of the fees, and we looked at what are the budgets for permit and how many people do I have and what's the floor space, and then what are the permits and things, services that we're providing, and we balance them in accordance with the manpower or effort that's really required. Um, what's important here is that the fees that we're talking about today are our new miscellaneous fees, and that they go into effect for the permit review in October 1 of this year. If you go onto our website, and we'll look at that in a moment, you'll see a bunch of miscellaneous fees, several of which are already in effect. But today we're talking about permit review fees, which are a little bit different. Can we go to the next slide? So the Permit Operations Department, there's a couple things that we should talk about up front, because some of you people are probably new to permitting, and then a lot of the people on board have been here for a while and understand what's going on. Okay, but what you should get out of today's presentation, which is hopefully pretty short, 15 minutes, is that yes, permit review fees have increased to cover expenses. That there are some new fees there and some new services that are being offered. And most importantly, that we're developing a new online permit information management system. Okay. So what are those services that we provide? All right. So if you're putting together a set of plans, you need to get from DC Water basic information. Where's my water? Where's my sewer? What's the elevation? What's the pressure? So you want to request that general information um, so that you can develop your plans. That's one thing we provide. The next thing is after someone has developed a set of plans, they will submit them to us for review. And we'll review based on a couple things. So here's a little nomenclature. We have small projects, medium projects, and large projects. And we have residential and non-residential. You need to kind of think about those as you go through our fees to try to look and see which are yours. Are you a residential structure that's under the residential building code? Well, no greater than two two units and 4 stories of hood, or are you non-residential / commercial? And are you small, medium, or large? So small says you have a water service that's 2 inches or less. Large says you have a water service 3 inches or larger. There's a big difference there. If it's 3 inches or larger, your meter's in a vault and you're making a connection to the water system by shutting it down. And if it's small, 2 inches or less, you're doing a tap. And if you're medium, that means, well, you're no longer residential, you're non-residential. And if you're in between, like you have a small water and a large fire, then you're sort of a hybrid medium large project. Okay. So we're going to submit plans. You're going to submit plans. We'll review. And when they're completed, we sign off in project docs. So Michael was talking about some fees that have been on the books that we haven't been charging. This will be one, the sign off in project docs. We're going to start instituting a cost for that or assessing it. And then the last thing on the sheet says post-construction customer service. This is a new optional service that we're trying to roll out to be customer friendly and to help with the construction phase and coordination, and making it a much easier experience for the contractor and the developer. Next slide, please. If you go to our website, dcwater.com, fees and charges, you're going to see a big long table of new miscellaneous fees. So all the miscellaneous fees have changed. That table has a lot, and a fair amount of it are the permit review fees. Maybe 65% of them. Next slide. But some of the things that you're going to pick up out of it, what do you want to know about the fee changes? Really, you want to know that a small residential went from $700 to $1,500. You want to know that a non-residential small went from $3,300 to $5,000. These are the permit review fees. And remember here, we're talking about the review, not the inspection or other further, not the larger fees, but the upfront review. And a large non-residential from 10 to 15. That oddball hybrids in there, sheeting and shorings in there. And the last line says expedited review. We're trying to push and provide and accommodate to a much greater degree expedited review. And then the last thing that's on here is we will start charging for sign-offs in project docs And we're going to start charging for RFIs, requests for information. And the reason is because there are so many that we do that it's a significant level of effort. Um, Next slide, please. So there are some proposed new services. The first one says water service connection. Well, that's new for us in the way we charge it as a flat fee. Not new for the developer, but it's going to make life a little simpler to manage. The important one here is the next two that say meter setter inspection and meter vault inspection. This is a brand new service that says we are going to come out and check in the field the meter setter and the meter vault prior to doing a meter request so that we can ensure that things have been installed properly and it'll make the meter set process go much more smoothly. And that last one that says optional construction phase customer service. Our intention is to say, I know how difficult it is for the developer to go, well, do I call water services, sewer services? Do I call Dexter? How am I going to get a CCTV coordinated? What is the schedule? And oh, by the way, do I have to request a tap and a meter set? Well, our goal is to help with that coordination, to give you an opportunity to have a singular location to go to request that, and that we would proactively go within DC Water to help make those connections and organize that. Next slide, please. And well, we have a new permit review fee. And for some of the larger developers, this will be interesting. It says, suppose you're only doing some utilities and some roads. You don't have your buildings or your houses or anything, but you have a site civil plan that has a significant amount of water and sewer in it. We didn't used to have a fee for that. We'd have to make up one. Um, and now we have instituted one, so that'll make life a little bit clearer to understand what the review fee will be. Next slide. Okay, here's some tips for working with DC Water. Make it easy, make it clear. All right. If you're doing a set of plans, first thing you need to do is you need to know where the water and sewer is and are there any surprises. Come to us early to get utility information. And if it looks like there's a problem, anticipate that there's a problem. But the real way to save time is to say, what is the DC Water reviewer looking for? They're looking to see where's the water, where's the sewer, what will be the new water or sewer demand, where will the new facilities be? If you make that big and clear and don't hide it, clearly show the difference between existing and proposed. And oh, by the way, if we're doing a profile and the profile is just this little tiny thing, maybe you want to draw it at full scale and make life clearer and easier to review. Right? Go through faster. And then on your part, be ready. There will be fees. There's intake fees, there's review, there's inspection, and there are some SAF fees. Um, so if you pay a little attention, I think you can get through the system pretty clearly. Let's go to the next slide. So let's look at the project timeline. The first horizontal line, steps 1, 2, and 3 say, prior to developing your plans or submitting, step 4 is submitted to DC Water. You're going to need your utility information. You may need a hydrant flow test. And if you're doing some significant excavation, you may need to do a CCTV of impacted sewers. So those are all preliminary steps up front that can be time consuming, okay? Especially that CCTV one. The second line in the middle says, all right, now I'm under construction. We're going to have a pre-con meeting and we're going to make water and sewer connections and meter sets. In that horizontal line in the middle is where we can be helpful in those new optional construction phase customer services. And then as you close out your project, you get to the bottom line, which are going to be to do some as-built, post-construction CCTV. We're looking for a reasonable 6-month period of settlement to make sure structures don't impact or harm the new utilities. And then when it's all done, then you can request any refund of excess fees. Next slide, please. So how long does it take to get a set of plans reviewed? There are several steps that you really do need to go through. And this is a timeline that gives you an idea of what to anticipate. That the first step you're going to do is you're going to submit to us and say, here's my plans, and we're going to look at them and say, are they ready? Are they good enough? What's your um, fee to review? And then we'll return back to you those plans with an invoice. And then you would pay the invoice and we would submit it to people for review. And then the plan review is typically it's 30 days per review cycle. And I would anticipate normally 2 or 3 review cycles. And then we would get to, in our system, preliminary approval, which says, hey, this is ready. It's technically correct. All you need to do is pay the final fees and the inspection fees, and we'll then approve them and sign them off in project docs. All right. This interesting timeline is going to get shortened as we go to a new online system. Next slide, please. Online portal. This is what we're anticipating to solve a lot of issues, is a completely online permit application system that says, as the applicant, you come online, you identify yourself, you identify the service that you need, the type of permit review that you're requesting, upload your plans. We're going to be doing review in Bluebeam, which is a very convenient interactive format. And the fabulous thing is you can do online payments. You'll be able to, in effect, you can make payments on the fly for a service, and you can create an account. Our fees sometimes are low, and our fees sometimes are very high. Um, if you're looking at deposits against damage, etc. So you can create what's called a trust account and have an account in your name that maybe you make an ACH payment to, and then it can be used sort of as a bank account against projects. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, so the online portal is intended to do accommodate plan reviews. You will submit, we'll review online. It'll be back and forth between us and your engineer. You'll be able to track your status. There should be easily identifiable information in the customer portal on where your project is. It'll make automatic email notifications of different milestones like, hey, you know what, you've completed the plans, it's time for you to request a tap. And if you've requested a tap, it's time for you to request a meter set, etc. Um, what I'm looking forward to is, as you create, say, an account or a trust account, the owner of that account can identify who can make payments into it. So maybe you want your engineer to add a payment or your contractor to add a payment. And then you can have an account that gets associated with a project. And as fees come up on the project, they can be automatically deducted. I think this will be a tremendous advantage for the larger projects, as well as for engineering firms who do a lot of repetitive submissions. So we're looking for a go live date in early 2023. It's an Oracle-based product. We're calling it PIMS, a Permanent Information Management System at the moment. I think and next slide, please. So that concludes my presentation, and we'd be happy to accommodate questions.
Okay, Brian. So this is when we turn it back over to me to help facilitate our questions. So again, we really want to thank you all. It is phenomenal to have over 100 of our customers and interested stakeholders attending this permit webinar. And again, as I said in the beginning, these are opportunities where we get to hear directly from you. I know that you all have a great relationship with Brian and his team, but it's phenomenal for us to have these types of opportunities. One, we are recording so that we can put this information on our website and continue to share it, but it does help us to see in real time the types of questions that you have to some of the not just fees that we are going to be implementing, but also your questions regarding the new online portal. So Brian, I'm going to get started. I did want to note there were a few housekeeping questions in relation to whether this information would be accessible, the presentation, and other details after this. Absolutely, we will post them and recirculate them through the email distribution list that we did. So yes, that answers a couple of folks asked that question. But I'm going to start with the questions in the chat, as I don't have any hands raised as of yet, but if you do have a question and you want to raise your hand, please feel free to do that, and we will go through unmuting your mic to get your questions answered. So I'll first start with the ones in the chat. So Brian, there are a few related to the IT fixes for et cetera. So the first says, will an IT fix be available for the Citizens Access Portal? And when will that be completed? I guess this particular customer was having some issues with the security certificate. So I don't know if that's best for you or someone else on the team.
I'm guessing that that's a customer service
Okay.
issue and not a permitting issue with
Okay.
people trying to make payments online.
And there are several, if they're not representatives who are available, what we'll do in this example, Ms. Shio, we will take your question down and make sure when you all registered, we did receive some contact information from you. So those questions that we're not able to address today, we will certainly provide some follow-up in addition to the presentation to make sure we get those addressed. So the next question, Brian, is in relation to the access at DCRA, if we're going to have another front desk person available at the permit office with DCRA.
So DCRA has opened their office on the second floor. DC Water, we're up here on the third floor. We are back in the office on a rotating telework, 2 days in the office, 3 days. So we're here in the office, and we will meet people by request. But no, we are not down at the desk at DCRA. Never have been.
So Brian, just as a follow-up, if they want to request to have a meeting with you or to meet with you, is it best to email this email address that's listed in the presentation, or is there another customer access
Yeah, no,
contact
typically,
information?
typically if they're looking for access, they would be requesting verbally to either their permit reviewer or to call into the general number, permit operations general number 202-646-8600, and then someone will take their request.
Excellent. If you all could, Pam, if I could get you to put that information in the chat so that our customers participating today can have access to that. So the next question is in relation to DDOT payments. So the first was a summary about DDOT's online payments and whether this will cause some delays in our permitting office regarding the payments and the paid stamp receipt from our office. So if you could talk a little bit, Brian, about that process.
Where is that question? I'm not sure that I'm following it.
Okay, so this question is from Ion, who's a guest. So it says DDOT has online payments. Again, is it necessary to have an online payment within DC Water? There's currently a delay in the permit office regarding payments and
Okay.
also receiving their paid stamp receipt from our office.
Right. Okay, so we are working towards an online portal that will take payments totally online, and you will immediately get response. But that's coming in 2023. Currently, we still have the same system that says, right, I can take checks at the moment, and you either have to drop them off at DCRA on the second floor, or mail them to us, or drop them at Blue Plains, or mail them to Blue Plains. That will hopefully be resolved in January, February, hopefully timeframe. But it's
Brian,
at the moment, it's the same.
could you please repeat the phone number? I missed the last 2 digits.
Sure. It's 202-646-8600.
Thank you.
Thank you. So at this moment, I see hands raised, so I'm going to take those because I don't want you to wait too long while we also review those in the chat that have been raised. So Emmanuel, if you could admit Mr. Sciaccone, I hope I got that close. Please forgive me if I didn't.
Mr. Shienko, your mic is open.
So let me just do a little brief
So-
housekeeping moment. So what happens when we unmute you? You still have to unmute
Mute
yourself.
Yes.
So sorry, I forgot to do that housekeeping moment at the beginning. So Mr. Sciaccone, you'll have to unmute yourself.
While we're waiting, shall I take another of the questions in the chat?
Absolutely. I was just going to say the same thing. So,
Okay, so
and what
let's
I
go
try
for
to do, Brian, is see if we, have some that are around the same topic. So, we did address the online payment process. The next is from Mr. Muhammad in relation to permits from other agencies and what will DC Water do to help streamline that process in relation to Project DOTS and the permitting process with other agencies.
Okay. As we go to our PIM system, where we're going to require or request that the applicant upload the DCRA B numbers and other permit numbers so that they're more easily accessible. We do our sign-offs in Project Docs and in Teams, or TOPS, I mean. There's a effort at the moment from the mayor's office level to try to help streamline interaction between all of us. And I don't know where that will go, but hopefully it will be some advantage. So at the moment, we're still close to the same, but with the PIM system, we're going to be keeping your information on board, and we'll be able, I believe, to do data dumps between the different different departments to see if your status is completed. But at the moment, we're doing a lot in Project Docs, and that's fairly convenient.
And just to recap as well, Brian, I'd want to, let everyone know that we are, working in partnership under the leadership of Opera and Wara and Barbara Mitchell in our Office of Government and Legal Affairs Department, in support, of course, with Operation and Finance to partner with DDOT and our other partner agencies, DCRA. I know it's going to be going into, 2 new agencies in the near future, but we are always taking that feedback and making sure that we streamline our process. And we want to be as efficient as possible because we know getting through those steps is critical to the economic development goals that the city has. And we're certainly very supportive of all of those efforts. I just wanted to acknowledge that ongoing work that we do under Denwa leadership and others. So, Mr. Shikone, have you been able to unmute yourself? I wanted to go back to you if possible.
And I think maybe trying *6. I know depending on the phone.
Okay.
I think *6 you can unmute yourself if you're having difficulty.
Okay, let's try Anthony Emanuel that's listed as a guest.
Okay, Anthony, your mic is open.
But you will have
From
to
our
unmute
end.
yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, how y'all doing? This is Anthony Curl. I just want to just tell Brian, Vahid, and Jigga they doing an excellent job. So that was it.
Well, thank you, Anthony.
Anthony, that will not get your permit expedited, but good try.
A nice try.
Good try. I'm kidding. We always appreciate the feedback. Okay. Mr. Crenshaw, if we could unmute his mic as well.
Okay. Mr. Crenshaw, your mic is open from our end.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So the permit review fee sign off, is it $1,500 for residential?
Yes, it will be.
So that's new.
That's new. But it's not a
And-
new fee, it's an increased fee. It used to
Because
be 700.
I never paid a fee for a sign off for, the small diameter.
Are you talking in project docs only, or are you talking for a small project?
So
that's
when we add a
submitted to-
bathroom to a home,
All right.
Would
So this is the project docs only submittal I think that you're talking about. And correct, you did not pay for that before. So if you had made a submission to DCRA in project docs and you were a category 1 or 2, which meant you were doing something nominal, and we reviewed and approved you in project docs, we did not charge you a fee. We will be changing that. Okay. The small fee will be, I think it's 100 and, let me look and see.
Do you want us to go back to that slide, Brian, with the proposed?
No, because it's not on there.
Okay.
No, so the project docs sign off fee for a small project is going to be $150. And
okay.
for a large project, it's going to be $500. We spend a lot of time, Vahid will let you know, we spend a lot of time and effort doing that. And there's a lot of them. Yes.
Thank you so much. Now it's clear.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so next we have Mr. Iglesias. And then I will go back to the chat, the questions being raised in the chat as well.
Okay. Mr. Iglesias, your mic is open from our end.
Good afternoon, everyone. My question is a couple of questions. First, the DC water velocity fee, would that be applicable if the civil plans were submitted to your office prior to and approved prior to submission to velocity? Or is it applicable to any velocity project?
All right. So velocity is an interesting discussion. DCRA has a velocity program. DC Water has a permit review fee or an expedited permit review fee. We are participating in velocity to the extent that we'll do the sign off when we're done in project docs. If you want a velocity effort from DC Water, which means, hey, you know what, my plans are really ready and I need my sign off tomorrow and everything is ready and I've got the fees, we've been through review and we can accommodate signing off in one day, we will do what we call a velocity review for you at your request. That says for $25,000. Yeah, I'll pull everybody together and we'll make sure that your plans get approved and signed off and out the door in a day or two. We have it designed, but it's not DCRA's velocity program. DCRA's velocity program is different than ours.
Understood. So if I
Okay.
already have DC water approval prior to DCRA's velocity, you signing off on there, we don't get assessed the $25,000 fee.
Oh, correct.
Okay. We do pay
Absolutely.
the $500 fee that you mentioned just a moment ago for sign off in
Right.
the system, but okay, that's great.
Right. Yeah, if you've come through us and we've reviewed and approved your plans, which we encourage, do it early. Come
Correct.
before, and and then let it catch up to your velocity review.
Agree. My follow-up question to the previous question was, if let's say Mr. Vahid needs to sign off on a reuse of an existing service, and we need to pay do we still pay the, I guess, sign-off fee in for the DCRA system? And to pay that, obviously we go through the normal procedures.
All right, so we're going to start charging for a sign off, and we're right in betwixt and between having an online payment system and a check processing system. And we'll let you know how that's going to be handled.
Okay, and will
I
that,
think that answers your question.
yeah, will that fee be assessed prior to the online payment, or only assessed after the online payment system comes about?
I'm thinking about before the online payment, but we need to discuss a little bit of the practicality of it.
Yeah, that was my question, because if we know
There's
about
a timing thing there that says, how do we do it without slowing the process down?
correct. Okay, I think that was everything I had. Thank you so much, Brian.
PIMS will solve that.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Last question. DCRA is shutting down their second floor starting next week. I know you guys have that Dropbox there. Have you anticipated? I guess in anticipation, I would assume they're not going to let anyone.
Goodness, they didn't ask me about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that Dropbox will be up on the third floor.
Okay, so we could go up to the third floor and just drop it. Great.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you so much. Just as a follow-up, you might want to inform, I guess, either DCRA staff.
We'll tell the front desk. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't let us go up to the third floor without a key card or something like that, or somebody come getting us. It's locked.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll find a way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for that information. Brian, in response to that, there is a question in the chat that I think is similar to the conversation we were just having. How early in the development process would you recommend that customers reach out to DC Water for information?
Right. So our mantra is come early, come often. All right. Because and especially as a person is even purchasing the piece of property, come and get the utility information and find out what's out there before they get compromised by buying a piece of property that doesn't have water or sewer to it. But I would recommend that 3 months at least before you think you're going to submit, you should be coming to us for requests for information. And we have one of the services we do provide is a conceptual plan review that we don't charge for. That gets us a spread, but you set up a meeting and we can talk to you about your project, and that should be done, especially if you have a significant project, months, often years in advance of when you're really going to do the project.
And Brian, just to follow up on that, there's some chatter just in relation, I'd like for you to clarify, when these fees take effect and the relationship to project docs fees and DC water fees. There was a question from Jan towards the end about, when will they have to start paying these fees? When will they apply? But also, if project docs, as that process goes through the sign-offs, if it comes to DC water, are fees still applicable in that example?
Okay. So come 10/1, fees will be applicable. And I'm hoping to actually apply them. Okay. They will clearly be as soon as the PIMS is available and online, then we will guarantee that we'll be collecting that fee. I'm going to have to get back with a little bit of information on our website as to the process for making that payment should we start collecting it October 1st.
That's great. And just to echo what we have said again, we will certainly share this information out. We'll make sure that it gets mailed to all the recipients, but we also ask that you, if there are others, as we know, oftentimes there are companies working with us and working on numerous projects, that you share that information with others who were not able to attend, and including the link to today's presentation. So I'm going to go, I think we have one more hand that was raised that I had not. I'm trying to monitor the chat and the hands at the same time. So Emmanuel, if I can get your help, is there someone we haven't called on? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Tessa Hall, your mic is open.
Okay, thank you.
Question about velocity, because this is actually very new to me that you all do a similar program, I guess, for velocity. So is there a flat fee of always $25,000, or is it specific to the project that you charge a fee like 5,000 to 30,000?
Right. No, it's a flat $25,000. But here's how you
Okay.
should really look at it is you can do regular review. We're trying to accommodate expedited review. And more importantly, you should be, so the reason to do velocity is you want to get your building plans through DCRA. And typically you're doing that in DCRA's velocity sign off. You can come to us beforehand because we're not going to look at all the building plans. We want the site civil. So we encourage you to come long before you need that velocity sign off so that DC Water can walk into it and go, if you've just completed velocity with DCRA and you've already been approved by us, boom, we're signed off. You're done. If you,
Right.
however,
Okay.
really
Understood.
need it, if you really need it, we'll accommodate you.
And so what is your expedited program? Is that like
Half the
2
time.
weeks or 3 weeks? So what's half the time? Is that
Right.
down
So
from 3
normally
months
with a large
to?
project, it's right. So normally it's 4 weeks for review for a plan or
Okay.
30 days. Then we're down to 15 days.
Okay. Okay. Great.
And we hope to be able to, we'll provide that in the capacity that we can. You know, if everybody
Understood.
asks for it, I can do, right.
Right. I got it. Thank you so much.
So Brian, there's a question in the chat that's very similar to this, just in relation to Mr. Gathachini. So I tried my best. I apologize if I did not get that correct. But his question or her question is, are there initial permit review cycles are 30 days? Can they be shortened, and is the review duration a statutory requirement, or is there an obligation that we have in our regulations that dictate that turnaround time frame or review time frame?
No, there isn't a statutory requirement that I know of. We've patterned ours over the years to coordinate with the other agencies, DCRA, DDOT, which is a standard review time of 30 days on a larger project. And we're offering expedited that says, if it's expedited, we'll double the fee, but we're going to cut the time in half. And so the big thing is how many reviews are you going to need? What do your plans look like? So what I like to tell people is go back to that slide that I said, how can you make the most out of your experience in DCRA or with DC Water? And that's make the plans readable and answer our questions, and you'd be done.
Fantastic. So I know that we are coming close to our end of time, but we do have two additional hands raised that I want to make sure we get your questions. So Mr. Crenshaw, will unmute your mic, and then Mr. Friday, you'll be next.
So I have a unique question. We have a project on Western Avenue. We know it's WSSC, but if any of these pipes go out into the street, that's the district's domain. How will we handle that with
No, you're in a difficult
DC
situation because now we
DC
have
water?
yeah. Are you going to be getting your water from PG County?
Well,
Or
this
you
would be Montgomery County.
Montgomery?
It's just,
Yeah,
I mean, it's a question just popped into my head because we're starting this project soon.
right. We'll have to have an online discussion with that. There's a billing issue and a taxing issue because you're in different locales. And so we'll have to, you can call me later and we can have a discussion.
And your number is 202-646-8600?
8600, yes.
All right, McDermott, Mr. McDermott, you'll be hearing from me. And I got your email too.
Okay.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Crenshaw. Mr. Friday, you're up next.
Mr. Friday, you're unmuted.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Great presentation. Just a quick question to Mr. McDermott in reference to approved plan revisions. Are they subject to the grandfather fees or are the new fees applicable to APRs?
There are new fees for APRs.
Okay.
Okay, so the date that you submit that approved plan revision is the date that that's the fee date that you would take.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you so much.
So I do want to, there were a few questions, Brian, in relation to projects that have already been submitted and those that are entered into the Velocity program. If we could discuss, the expedited review by DC Water and whether there's an expectation of expedited review for those clients who've already entered review requests into our Velocity program.
I'm not sure I follow. If you've submitted already, you've submitted either regular or expedited. We don't change horses in midstream. If that's what you request, I'm not sure that I follow.
Well, and that's essentially it. So for the existing applications and reviews, will we be going through our existing expedited review process by DC Water, or is there going to be a change in that process?
No, there's really no change. It's if you at the time that you submit is when you should declare whether you're standard or expedited. If for various reasons it does come to be a situation where we need to expedite it, and it's approved, then we might charge you the expedited fee and then complete the rest of your review in an expedited fashion.
And then there's just a follow-up question in relation to the 25,000 for the Velocity review fee. Is there a difference in the fee depending on the project, small versus large?
Nope, it is what it is. And I would not anticipate a small project would be looking for that. But if they are, it is what it is.
Okay, well, we are at the top of the hour, and we, again, just want to extend a great appreciation for everyone taking time to participate in this permit webinar. We hope that you found the information useful. But most importantly, that you found that you have a source of information, moving forward. If you have not, I know many of you are already very familiar with our permit operations and notably under Brian's leadership, but the fees, the link to the new fees are in the chat. We will be circulating this presentation. And I would be remiss again if I just did not note that we value your feedback. And we always want to ensure that we're being efficient, whether it be through project docs or our partnerships with MOPI and our district partner agencies. But we cannot do that alone without hearing from you. So I encourage you to email Brian McDermott at dcwater.com, so that's listed on the presentation. And if there are other sources, again, the phone number that is listed, our website is a host of invaluable information as well. But we will continue to share updates with you as the online portal and the progress of the implementation of the online portal comes to fruition. So Brian, I will turn it over to you if you have any closing remarks.
Yes, I do have one closing remark. I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. As you go to our new fee schedule, you will see new fees for taps and connections. These things are standard flat fees. Right. If you had received an invoice in the past for construction inspection services, and we issued that invoice, that's the fee that you would pay. Even though the flat fee may have changed between when we gave you that invoice and now, we will ask you to pay the fee that was on the invoice that we issued. We will not update that invoice. Other than that, thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. And as I say, come early, come often. Um, and um, if there's an open lot and you're looking at this and you're saying, what a fabulous place to develop, you have to ask yourself, why is it open? Look at the utilities first. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Again, thank you all for joining us today. This information will be posted and available on our website, and we'll certainly circulate it. Please share it and reach out to us if you have any additional questions. Thank you so much for participating today.